All right, guys. Welcome back. Hopefully we fixed all the issues, and if we didn't, we apologize. But we should be back. We should be good to go. And I believe the last time we were talking, Dustin was saying something about preparation. Hopefully. All right, fine. I don't really know what we were talking about, but we're back. That's what matters. I was going to get into this section where we talk about Nationals deck choices because that's what's coming up. That's what's on everybody's mind. I mean, I'm personally starting to play test now. And obviously, I'll talk more about that in the near future. But Nationals is right around the corner. Battle Roads are about done. How do you guys go about preparing for Nationals? And we'll actually start with our special guest.
Oh, that's me. I'm special.
Yeah,
okay.
That would be you, my friend.
Preparing for Battle Roads or Nationals?
Nationals.
Nationals. Well, in years past, I found it really effective to just get a really solid group of friends that you consistently test with and like talk to decks about, because they're like if you're staying with like one group of maybe like 4 friends, or you have like a group of friends in person and a few people you talk to online, but you always talk to the same people, like they can keep up and remember what you're doing and like almost give you the best advice and like the best playtesting, because they understand like you the most, what you like the most, and like they can probably give you the best advice when you're looking for it. Whereas suppose you just randomly talk to some other good player, they might not want to talk to you or care about what you have to say or really want to help you that much. But if you get like a close group of friends, not only can they be a good opponent and help you learn more effectively, but they also want you to do well and will then give you good advice. So.
Yeah, well, Pram doesn't actually apply to that. He just wants you to fail as miserably as possible.
No,
but,
not deep down, but just at the moment.
but yeah, I mean, I'm sure for the most part you're right. I just have really bad friends, or really bad playtest partners, one or the other.
If I could speak to this,
all right, please do.
I would say you bring this mostly upon yourself. When you try to talk trash, if you ever win. So, you like to talk yourself up, say you're the greatest theoretical mind in the game, and you will try to win at all costs. And when you have a win in your hands and it's a close game, you'll do whatever it takes to slow roll me. So, why am I trying to help someone like that?
Slow roll you me?
Yeah, I remember various occasions where you just needed an energy to win the game, and you sat there for 3 minutes not playing a card, and then you would type in the chat, and then you'd say, well, this sucks, and then 5 minutes later you would play the energy and just win the game.
I still enjoy that.
Keep in mind, I knew you had it the entire time, and I was just sitting there, like, browsing the internet during your turn. Then I come back, I'm like, oh, yep, okay, he did have it. Cool.
I love doing that.
Good friend.
It's my favorite. Well, man, it never gets old, all right? I enjoy it. That's probably the highlight of my day every day I do it. So just leave it alone, and let's move on. But yeah, either way, we all have our playtest methods. Obviously, Dustin mentioned that he loves playtesting with his friends more than just random playtest partners because of this. I love playtesting with my friends too, because I do get to slow roll them and enjoy the moment. And when they beat me, it's usually because of luck, so it works out. Drew, what about you? What do you think goes into your Nationals playtesting preparation?
Well, I finally got my deck to start playing again, so we've been going to Battle Roads. I didn't play since December, so I'm trying to work myself back into shape, go to a few Battle Roads, get the rust out by actually playing in tournaments. And then we've also been playtesting at my house. We try to playtest at least once a week, a few games, and try to really work out all the options. We've pretty much only been testing the top decks right now. Zekiel's and Darkrai. I want to work some other stuff in there, CMT, over the next few weeks. And hopefully things will work out and we'll do well at Nationals.
All right. Very ABC playtesting preparation by Drew. What about you, Chris?
I didn't play for 6 months, man. What do you want from me?
That's exactly what I want to hear from you. Because somebody that didn't play for about 6 months is kind of in my shoes, where, you know, you're kind of just going at this blind and you're trying to figure things out from scratch. That's really what I want to hear. I want to hear how you fix, the leaks that you're inevitably going to have because you don't know anything about the format.
Well, I play horrible at Battle Roads, so that's the first step of the process. And then trying to connect with people and get better decks. Like I ran Darkrai pretty much all Battle Roads. The first week I had like a horrible list and then slowly worked into it. The thing with Darkrai is you're playing like 40 trainers. You got to figure out which combination of trainers is best because they're all useful at some point, but you just got to figure out which ones are more useful, the most useful.
Well, Drew, I know you haven't been playing for 6 months, so welcome to the format, but pretty much every deck is just like that.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like 15 Pokemon regardless, and that's like a high end. And then like 12, 13 energy, and then the rest are trainers, supporters.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Pram, what goes into your playtesting?
Generally, I have a playtesting group that we hammer out a deck. We kind of go through all our options, and then if we kind of get stuck onto one, if we kind of get stuck onto one deck, we just playtest it versus the entire format, and then it's pretty much all we do. I mean, like I'll sometimes play random games versus other people online, but generally, I think the most effective playtesting is probably the week of Nats because your playtesting is kind of limited in terms of what you do in your own circle. But when you see what everyone else has done, you can kind of adjust a little bit better on what's actually happening in the format rather than what's happening in just your circle.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. And most of us would agree with you that the best playtesting we do, it comes week of Nationals. Usually for me, it comes the day that I fly into Indianapolis. From that point on, granted, I don't playtest 24/7 when I get there, but I do put in quite a few hours, and you just have all of the best brains in the game combined in one room or a few rooms, and you guys just start hammering out the format. You hammer out what's good, what's not, and eventually most people do decide on 1 to 2 deck lists and go from there. What about you, Kyle? What goes into your playtesting?
Honestly, I have not really playtested much with this new set. What I've just been doing is keeping track of what's been winning. I've just posted a new thread on our website, which took into account all the winners of Battle Roads so far in the U.S. Thanks to Michael Martindale. His screen name is backwards on PokeGym. He's keeping track of all these stats, and I'll just look at that and look at what's been winning all the national championships and try to make an educated decision. Obviously, there's going to be some testing to go into it, but for me, Nationals has always been, okay, there's going to be like 900 players, maybe more.
Yeah, dude, Nationals is really a hard tournament for you, Pooka, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not easy, man.
Yeah, okay.
But, I don't always choose what I feel like is the best deck. I just kind of look at what people have been using and what's been winning and try to make an educated decision. Like last year, I thought Magnivore would be pretty big, or Magnezone decks in general. So we ended up going with the Donphan, Yanmega, Zoroark thing. And hey, it worked out. So I really don't do a whole lot of testing before Nationals. I'll play test here and there just to get a feel for the decks, but I won't really make a decision until I get all this information and I see, okay, like right now, look, 116 Darkrai decks have made top 4 at Battle Roads. That's quite a bit. And it's won 46 Battle Roads, which is 30 more than the next deck. So you got to look at that and say, okay, if I'm going into Nationals and I'm expecting to win, I'm going to have to beat Darkrai a lot. Like, maybe even half my rounds I'm going to be facing Darkrai decks. So you just kind of take in this information and make a deck choice. Say, okay, I know my deck has to be able to at least compete with Darkrai in order to do well in Nationals. And then you probably think, okay, Zekrom Electric's probably not going away, so I'm going to have to deal with that too. And you just kind of narrow down what you think you're going to run into, and you just make a deck that can kind of deal with all those. With 900 players, you're never going to be able to deal with every single deck that's out there. If you're playing a deck just to beat Darkrai and Zekrom Electric, hey, you might run into Vanillux and you'll lose a game. Whatever, that happens. So you just kind of make the best choice you can, and there's really not much you can do because it takes a lot of luck to get through such a big tournament. And you could make the right decision and still not do well. So I don't put too much stock into picking my deck for Nationals. I mean, I don't end up deciding until the last minute, but I realize there's a lot of luck involved, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I choose. I'm gonna have to get lucky regardless.
When did you finally take Chinsano out of your Stage 1 list before Nats? Because I thought I saw you playtesting it a few days prior.
Right. I made that deck, I think, Wednesday. So the tournament was on Friday. So I made the first version of that deck Wednesday, and then I realized that the Chinchino was not going to fly. Kicked it out of the deck probably by the end of the day. And that kind of last-minute testing is really good at Nationals because really you have all your friends there on site, and they're all going to be good players, I would think. So you figure out at the last minute, okay, these are what good people are playing, and if my deck can't beat them, then why am I playing it? So
yeah, words of wisdom. And I would like to focus a little bit more on what you said, where you made your deck on Wednesday and you played it on Friday. Now, obviously, I know about this, but can you explain to the viewers? I mean, really, just detail it a little bit more, because that sounds kind of surreal. How do you build a deck on Wednesday, get there, play the tournament on Friday, and feel comfortable enough to be able to do that?
I mean, there's always ideas floating around in my head. Even though I say, okay, I didn't build it that day or until that day, doesn't mean I wasn't thinking about it before. I might not have tested it, but the reason I playtest with new sets is to get a feel for what works and what doesn't. And it usually doesn't take too long to figure that out. You play a couple of games with Darkrai and you realize, okay, this card is really good. Dark Patch is really strong. There's no way this card is not going to be good. So then you kind of go from there, and you kind of cross out what things aren't going to work anymore. So for me, it was just kind of, okay, I knew Stage 1s were fairly consistent. Yanmega was obviously really good. Donphan, I mean, it knocks out the fighting weak Pokemon. And it was just kind of a deck that made sense. And I played it a couple games. It made sense, it worked, and I felt comfortable with it. I mean, it just made sense from, logically, and from a deck theory standpoint, it was going to be consistent because it was all Stage 1 Pokemon. It wasn't something crazy like some double Stage 2 deck like the Truth, where that would take a lot of testing to figure out if that would actually work. I wouldn't feel comfortable putting together some crazy combo deck and just running with it. Like if I say, oh, I'm going to build a Kyogre Groudon Legend Box deck, and that sounds good. That's not how you go about it. It was just a simple deck that didn't seem like it could really go wrong, and through a little bit of playtesting, my theory was proven correct, at least for me, and I felt comfortable enough. It's not something everyone can do, but oh well.
Can I make a note about something on this subject?
Yeah, please.
People, historically have asked me, in April or May, early May, oh, hey, Dustin, what are you playing for Nationals?
Yeah.
I don't know. Same thing with every tournament. As soon as Cities was over, or before Cities was over, hey, Dustin, what are you going to play for States? This is my deck. No, it's not. You will change your decks so many times, and I always get asked that, and I'm sure other people do as well. But I don't understand why people think you need to have your deck and your deck list and your deck choice set in stone a month prior.
Now, to be fair,
I agree.
I actually think that there are several people that actually do that, and not only do they do that, but they do that to decent success. I know of a few specific people right off the top of my head that actually do this for everything, for cities. Like 3 weeks ahead of time, they post on Facebook, got my cities deck ready, and sure enough, these guys play these decks throughout the first month of cities. And that's just how some people are. Now, granted, most people shouldn't do that because honestly, it takes away a lot of options. But the few people that do hammer that out, there is a lot to be said about that because those guys, they know their deck list. They've hammered out their deck list. They know exactly what 60 cards to play, and they know the matchups. So that does go a long way. But for the most part, and I believe all 5 of us fall into this other boat where, hey, you know what? We'll figure it out. Oh, I'm not happy with this yet? All right, cool. I know for the most part, every nationals I've ever attended, I'm like on Thursday night just still scrambling trying to find the deck list, and finally I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll play this. And I'm never actually happy. I'm never sitting there going like, well, this is the perfect 60 cards. I'm going to this tournament expecting to win. And that's just, I think that comes with the territory of just kind of keeping your options open and hoping for the best. Like Kyle said.
I remember that year I won. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning, and we were actually in different hotel rooms, and I was talking to you on AIM at like 1 in the morning, and we still hadn't figured out the deck list that we were going to play.
I think that's when you mentioned Rayquaza. You're like, I think I'm going. I don't know, what are you doing?
I was like, you know, man, it's tough to beat Flygon. I'm going to add in Rayquaza. Now, those kind of decisions, that can backfire. Fortunately, it didn't for me, but making crazy changes to your deck at the last minute, that can be bad.
I should have never listened to you. Never, ever listened to you. Rayquaza was terrible.
You did alright, didn't you?
Yeah, but still, it was terrible for me. Rayquaza.
Until you lost to the King of Magikarps, but that's a story for another time.
Yes, it is.
It worked out for me, I guess. So, I guess the point is nobody is really too decisive. Everybody is unhappy with their list.
I don't want to
turning it in for the most part.
I mean, there are times when like I'm really comfortable with a deck, and I'm like 80% certainty that I'm going to play a deck, but maybe with a few cards variance. But that's maybe like at most a month ahead of time. Like I'm talking about when people are asking me before the set has come out and stuff.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. That annoys me too. Like, nothing annoys me more when, like, for example, Dark Explorers just came out not that long ago, and like the set's not even out. And people are like, "Hey man, what do you think about that new Rayquaza EX? How do you think that's going to impact the format?" I'm like, okay, yes. I have no idea. First of all,
cares?
Dark Explorers isn't even out. Okay, well, there's 2 sets away. I don't even know how Dark Explorers is going to affect things. Why do you even care about Rayquaza? We're not even going to have it for this season. And it always boggles my mind when people ask me about that stuff.
I think that can contribute to a lot of people's downfall when they're focusing too much on... They're always focused on, like, the next format instead of, like, trying to do well in the current one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we're going to touch a little bit more on this before Worlds, and but what do you think goes into Worlds preparation? Does that differ with Nationals? Historically for you guys, we'll start with Kyle.
It should. For me, it hasn't, which is probably part of the reason why I've done so poorly at Worlds. I try to take the same approach, but Worlds is actually a much smaller tournament. The metagame is more defined, and the players are better in general, because, I mean, they have to be. They qualified for Worlds. So, testing for Worlds is a lot different. You can hammer out a new rogue deck since the tournament is so small. For example, Ross's deck, I do not think that deck would have done well at Nationals at all.
Too many rounds.
Yeah. Like, you would just get steamrolled in Nationals. I don't even think you would make top cut with that deck in that tournament. But you get to Worlds, you know, you sneak into top 16, who knows what can happen. It's a completely different tournament, just by the sheer amount of players, and the quality of players, too. So, I think when Worlds comes around, you actually get rewarded for taking more risk with your deck. For Nationals, it's more about consistency. For Worlds, you can get away with some crazy techs, because there's so few rounds. All it has to do is pay off a couple times for you, and then, hey, you're in top 4. Your deck can be a little less consistent, because, hey, I mean, if I can win a best 2 out of 3, that's good, and maybe I'll catch people off guard with something stupid like Potion, and, yeah, I think Worlds rewards people who take risks, and Nationals really doesn't.
That's a good point. That's a really fair point. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but no, I mean, I'm not saying it's inaccurate. I'm just saying I'm not sure how accurate that might be, but definitely a good point, a fair point, where you're right. There are fewer rounds, there are fewer people involved, and there's a much stricter metagame. I think with Nationals, the metagame's all over the place. You literally have no clue what anybody's playing. And then Worlds rolls around, and everybody, you know, first of all, has U.S. Nationals to really rely on for results, and people just get to hammer out better decks. So, Pram, what do you think goes into Worlds preparation, seeing as how you took second place one year?
I think it's actually pretty much the same, for me at least. Although I will admit that I kind of made like some rash decisions for my Worlds back in Hawaii last time I was there. Like I remember.
Lucky I was there.
Yeah, thanks to Kyle and all the everyone there. For a while, I was toying around with like 4 Pokemon reversal, but they talked me back into a standard, for the most part, a standard list. I had a couple tech cards, but they were in there because of the results of U.S. Nationals and all that. In terms of consistency versus techs, there's some truth to what Kyle says where, you know, it's better to be more consistent over Nationals because you can go up against anything, and you can be more techy at Worlds. However, I don't think that should stop you from teching a little bit at Nationals, you know. Like, if your deck is, like, decent versus Darkrai, well, you can add in that extra card or two that may swing the matchup to over the top in your favor, rather than just being like, it's a 50-50, whatever. So it's kind of just playing the odds there. But I think going with... I don't think anyone's happy with their lists ever. Because I remember at Worlds, I had Lucians in my list, and that card literally was just like terrible for me all through Swiss. Like the entire time I was just like, why did I cut a call energy for this card? What was I thinking, right? And then Top Cut rolls around, and then I'm using it every round, and it's just like the best card in the deck. I'm just like, wow, I'm so glad I put this back in here. Whew, what a lifesaver. So, you know, you just gotta. I think you have to be a little bit luckier at Nationals to do well at that tournament because it's just so big. Whereas, so you need the consistency to back you up. Whereas Worlds, you can just be like, okay, as long as I make top cut, I can afford to lose a game due to a little inconsistency. That's okay, as long as I can win a matchup 2 out of 3.
Okay, Drew, what about your thoughts?
Well, for me, I actually kind of care a little bit more about Nats since I made top 2 once. I'd love to win, so kind of go a little bit harder for that one. I do go hard for Worlds, but I really care about Nats more. I think it's the harder tournament, maybe more of a gauntlet style, so you kind of maybe have to playtest, like test the conditions, you know, playtest longer hours because you're going to be sitting there for a really long time. If you make the distance, like if you play all 3 days, you are just exhausted on that Sunday. You played like 20 games probably at that point, counting the individual games and best 2 out of 3. So towards the end, your brain is fried, and you really gotta practice that type of conditioning during your playtesting. Play a bunch of games in a day. Try to at least.
I'm dead.
Do that kind of thing. Whereas Worlds, it's not really. It's exhausting, but it's not like that. Not a marathon. So just kind of getting into the spirit of the tournament.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair point.
If I could add on to that. I think Drew hit on a good point. I think one of the most important things I ever did was, I mean, when I was younger, I guess, I used to sit there and just play for hours and hours. I think we all did at some point.
My day.
Yeah, back in the old days. But what happened was, I would play even when I was like extremely tired. It would be like 2 in the morning, and I would still be sitting there playing. And you might think it's stupid, but when these big tournaments come around, like nationals, and you get to like the 3rd day, like Drew said, you are completely fried. Like your brain is dead, because even though now it's 3 days and the tournament, like the rounds end kind of early, they probably end by like 5 o'clock by now. You don't just like go to sleep. Like you're at nationals, you want to hang out with your friends. You still don't go to bed until late, and then you got to wake up early the next morning, and you do that 3 days in a row, and it starts to really wear on you. So
you might do that 3 days in a row.
What's that? Oh,
you might do that 3 days in a row.
You have to if you want to win. But what I'm trying to get at is you almost have to kind of train yourself to be in these kind of situations. Otherwise, you'll get in a spot where you're completely tired and you're kind of brain dead, and you'll just kind of melt down. You won't know what to do because you'll just start making mistakes because you aren't used to playing when you're so tired. So if you can play test a little bit when you're really tired and just kind of get a feel for it, so that when it comes around in a tournament, maybe you won't be as unprepared. Obviously, when you're tired, you're still not going to be perfect, but if you can kind of train for the situation a little bit, then it's going to help you out later on.
Okay. Fair points. And finally, Dustin, you're going to be going into your first Worlds. What kind of playtesting do you expect to be doing, or are you actually doing now for Worlds?
Well, I can expect to see that a lot of the playtesting I'm doing now will inevitably pay off for Worlds in some way. However, I'm in an understanding that the formats will be a little different, like given all the points that you guys have just made, because with Nationals you're going more for like a mass metagame that you're expecting. With Worlds it's a little more specific, with the best of the best players trying to do the most they can to win. So with that in mind, I'm going to be doing a lot of the same playtesting I'm doing for Nationals now, also for Worlds, after Nationals actually occurs. And then I will probably pick up the pace with online testing and try to test with people who are also going to Worlds, probably most likely Drew, actually, because he keeps bugging me to playtest like every day, and I keep denying him. So I feel bad.
No, don't be fooled by that. I ask you to play it, but he's really just tricking you. I get IMs like that every day too, that just ask me apprentice, and then if I ever one day would say yes, he would say just kidding.
You just use your same old excuse, there's no patch, which is a lie. I know you playtest with other people.
I actually haven't played an apprentice since States.
I did a lot
I actually just input cards into apprentice. I just did that today, actually. Just input.
Yeah, it just gets annoying.
I did a lot of good playtesting with Drew last year for the grinder, and I feel as though my deck choice was really, really solid, and I just it didn't do well for me. I drew terribly after like the 4th round, but no grinder this year. All the big bucks are going in. World Champ 2K12 right here.
You know, I'm gonna use this as an aside. I've been trying to playtest, or I'm gonna try to playtest for Nationals quite a bit, and I started trying to playtest on PlayTCG with Pram a couple days ago, and I have no problems with the program. I think the program is actually visually very appealing, much better than any other program we've ever had. But I cannot stress how much I hate the shuffler for it. I can't stress it enough. It's the most annoying thing in the world, having to play on that program and deal with the cards that it gives me, because it's just unfair, completely unfair when you have to Juniper away 3 junk arms every time.
Did everyone see?
And let me give the
my games against Drew. Remember we aired games, Drew and I playing on PlayTCG last year. Yeah. How I coined the name Bitterest of Berries, because I would constantly draw like all 3 of my junk arm or 6 energy off of an oak or something. And
there's actually a complaint about that program. People think the shuffling algorithm is messed up.
I think it has to.
I don't know.
I think it absolutely has to. it wasn't one-sided. To be fair, it wasn't one-sided where I was the only one getting the bad hands and Pram sitting there going like, perfect 7. No, it's not like that.
Well, usually that is
it
what
definitely
Pram
goes both ways. But wait, I'm sorry, what?
I was saying usually Pram does get the God hand.
Yeah, Playtcg actually kind of solves that to where now he only gets like an average 7. But the point that I'm trying to make is that it is absolutely like a poor playtesting tool, but cool visual tool. I'll say that much because I would 100 times prefer to play with Apprentice if I was just strictly playtesting, just trying to get some games in. But I'm sorry, Pram, what were you going to say?
I don't know. This sounds like a huge sour grape story after going 1-6.
It is a huge sour grape story.
We just have to put this in perspective.
It's a huge sour grape story. I couldn't get a single good real game in. Actually, we got one real game in, and he won that one. But the other 5 losses were just ridiculous, and my win was ridiculous. It didn't even make sense. Like, none of these games were games.
His one win was a turn 1 on a spare goal.
And your other ones were like, on turn 3, you're sitting there just like knocking me out with Darkrai, and I have no bench. I'm just sitting there like, well, I just drew into a horrible 7. I passed. And you just go, all right, well, catch or kill game. Like, I can't win those games. Like, there's no way.
Hey,
and,
man,
I mean,
Darkrai's pretty good.
Yeah, it's especially good when your opponent only has 2 Pokemon and no energy.
Play more energy.
Yeah, exactly. The point that I'm trying to make is that when it does come to playtesting, absolutely find the programs that you're comfortable with and playtest away because those things are invaluable to getting better games in. And for what it's worth, I'll always stick to Apprentice. I've been playing Apprentice for well over a decade now, and I'm going to play it until I'm done with the game, until I'm done with card games in general.
Yeah, for us, we would love to be able to stream that kind of stuff, but unfortunately, Apprentice is the best way to test, and it's also the least visually pleasing. Like, it's literally just like squares that has the cards' names on them. That's if I stream that, I don't think anyone would really watch because nobody would know what's going on.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And it's a poor situation that we're in, but so be it. But yeah, to anybody that's serious about playtesting, I do recommend playing on Apprentice. And there is no current patch for it, unfortunately, but I'm sure somebody can work on one.
I don't know. I had no issues with Playtcg when I was winning.
I hate you.
No one has any issues ever when they're winning.
I mean, I had the hands too, man. I had to discard like 3 Junipers and 2 Junk Arms with 1 Juniper in 1 turn. And
yeah, I know.
I still won.
And you know what? I started playing the ooh-ah drinking game. This is actually a real story. By the end of game 1, I was so frustrated that I have some beers in my fridge still. And I said, you know what? I'm going to play the drinking game because he kept saying ooh-ah on Skype. So every time from that point on that he said ooh or ah, like if he just top decked, I would just like take a giant swig of my beer. And I went through 3 beers in 4 games. 3 beers. That means he must have like every turn averaged to say 1 ooh. It was just the most dumb thing. I end him
what you
to
guys
2.
don't know is that they were 40s.
Yeah, exactly. I end him to 2, and then all of a sudden he's like, well, I guess I got to get a catcher here. He's like, ooh! And I'm like, oh no, it's a catcher. He's like, nope. Then he plays random receiver, and then he's like, all right, I only got an N here. Then he ends himself to 2, and then he's like, ooh! And he plays catcher. The dumbest thing in the world. But yeah, at least I had a good fun night out of that. Good drinking game to have. And yeah, 3 beers in 3 games is quite a bit, man. That's 3 beers in like 8 turns or something. But
your turns take like 5 minutes, so it doesn't matter.
They did. They were quite long. I like got up, walked around, came back. It was still his turn. It's good stuff.
True.
I remember
those messes.
When I would play you on Apprentice, Crim, during your turn, I would actually just get up and like go to the bathroom, and then I would come back and you would have played 1 card.
I was sitting there going, I'm so deep in the tank.
You guys all Skype each other when you playtest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely the best
used
way.
to. Yeah, we didn't.
I refuse to do it without.
I usually don't with Apprentice because it's so easy to type. Playtcg's got a weird chat interface.
Yeah, but it's just even with Apprentice, it's just so much easier to like just say what you're doing like in a normal gaming context as opposed to typing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, you can talk
Apprentice
trash.
is a little friendlier because you can like tap the cards.
Yeah.
But I will never forget the time when I was playing against you, Crim, and it was we both had like horrible decks, You had some like Venusaur EX, Blissey EX. You wanted your Venusaur deck, and I had like a Jumpluff Moltres deck, and you were sitting there with your friend Noe, and you two were sitting there together trying to plan out your turns. Like you would sit there talking to each other, figuring out what the best move is, how you're gonna play the rest of the game out, and you guys still lost.
That might have been some of my best memories. Yeah, I mean, just because you have two heads doesn't necessarily make it better than one. You know better than I do that he and I cannot get along with anything we say. So it's just sitting there like just bickering at each other, going like, no, this is the best play. But either way, yeah, I tank a lot. I mean, you can ask anybody that's played me in the over a decade that I've played this card game. I've always been incredibly slow. I can't help it. It's a bad brain that I've got. It's all I've got, though. So you got to work with what I
brain.
got to work with what I was given, man.
Okay.
But yeah, either way,
he claims to be the greatest theoretical mind in the game.
But he has a bad brain.
Bad brain and all.
I mean, that should just like prove even more how
he doesn't
ridiculous.
Have a bad mind. He has a bad brain.
Yeah, the brain's faulty.
Oh.
Bad chemical imbalance, etc., etc.
So the processing's just slow, but like when he comes up with an idea, like 3 hours later, he's just like, "Oh, I got it."
Pram's got it. Greatest theoretical mind. I stand by that statement. We'll stand by it until somebody proves me wrong. Bring it.
You've proved yourself wrong plenty of times.
No way, man. I have at least a 50% batting. 50% batting.
That's supposed to impress me?
That's pretty good. You try batting 50% on this stuff.
I have never worked on a Wailord Electro deck for like 2 months, only to play one game and say, okay, this is bad.
You know what? It happens. It's part of the process.
For 2 months, we knew Entei Raikou Legend was coming out, and you were just convinced that it was the be-all end-all of the format, and you spent months, literally months, putting together a deck list. And you played one game against my Lux Chomp, and you're like, oh, this doesn't beat Garchomp.
Well, you got to remember, man. Like I'm talking about
the most popular card in the whole format.
I'm talking about this stuff without ever playing a single game. If you remember, I said Soup Teleporter is the best card in the format. Nobody believed me, and by the end of it, everybody was playing 4 copies of that card. Same thing with Rocket
point, Crim.
Thank you.
Good job, man. 6 years ago, you were relevant.
Thank you. But yeah, like I can't even remember my point anymore because somebody derailed me. But either way, I'm still the greatest. All right.
My God.
All right. Before we get into the viewers' questions, I do want to ask. I want to ask Dustin a couple of off-topic questions. Just gonna ask you a bunch of like random things. Just spit out whatever you can think of. It's gonna be a new little gimmick that hopefully it takes off. If not, then oh well, it just goes in the trash can. All right, my friend. You ready?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. Who's the hottest actress out right now?
The hottest actress, Emma Stone.
Emma who?
Emma Stone. Emma Stone.
Okay. Hottest musical artist.
Do what?
Hottest musical artist.
Hottest musical artist.
Yes.
Oh God. I don't know. Am I living up to stereotypes if I name a band no one's heard of?
Yeah, you actually. But go for it. I mean, if that's who you are.
I don't know. If anyone's heard of Saint Vincent, the lead singer of that band, she's a really attractive person. I don't know. I don't really go for the hotties. I go for the classy ladies, you know?
The classy ladies. All right. Favorite food?
Favorite food? Pizza, probably. I don't know. I've never really thought about a favorite food, but that's the one I always eat without fail. Yeah, I won't deny one. Unless it has mushrooms on it. Who likes mushrooms?
Not me.
Who like mushrooms.
Okay. Yeah,
I like mushrooms.
I don't like it on pizza. That's just.
I like mushrooms on pretty much anything.
You know, I hate black olives, but I love them on pizza.
I hate black olives too.
Yeah.
And tomatoes.
Yeah, those are terrible.
Hate tomatoes.
Imagine you're on death row, though. Imagine you're on death row and they're telling you this is your final meal. What do you want to have? Really? You're going to ask for pizza? Really? No,
if it's
there's
like
no-
really hot.
You're on death row, dude. Death row. You're gonna have your fun.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm gonna eat what
frozen
makes me
pizza.
happy. I'm not gonna like go for upper class expensive steak. Like that's not what I want. I don't have time for a fork and a knife. Just shove a
Ice
slice in
cream.
my mouth.
God,
Well, this can be like
pizza?
the best gourmet pizza ever.
Yeah, I mean, you better have like freaking, I don't know.
Get like a Chicago deep dish pizza.
I don't care if it's DiGiorno as long as it's cooked well. It makes me smile.
Spoken like a true poor college student.
All right, man. Favorite date you've ever been on?
Favorite date I've ever been on. Well, I do this thing. I live really. I live really close to Indianapolis, and if anyone who's been to Indianapolis, which should be everyone who's watching, you'll know they have like a canal that runs through the city. And usually I take girls out on dates around the canal. It's pretty hot.
So your favorite
Always-
date is your most common date.
Right. Well, one time we
That's
had
just-
bikes and we rode around downtown Indianapolis and we went to Qdoba and like went to the mall and
All right. That's
top
fine.
notch.
All right. What's your favorite sport? Do you like sports?
Yeah. My dad and I watch hockey a lot.
Okay.
So that's the
It's
one.
like the one sport I don't watch.
Oh, cool.
We're incompatible, brother. We're incompatible. Prada or Armani?
Do what?
Prada
Prada,
or
Armani.
Yeah.
Prada.
Prada. All right. All right. Hipster or not hipster?
I don't know how to answer that question. What does it mean?
Answer away, my friend.
Who came up with these questions?
Yeah, you? Is that what you were doing? Is that why we were late to start the show? You were writing down all these
Yes.
questions?
Actually, I can't find my headphones. That's why we were late. But either way, answer the question, my friend.
No.
No.
Not.
The answer is no. You heard it here first. All right, Drew. Do you have any questions for him that you want me to answer? Since you're his good buddy.
No, I think you embarrassed them enough. So
Are you kidding me?
let's get some viewer questions.
Well, every time I answered a question, you're like, oh, really?
Who answers Emma Stone? You have infinite actresses that you can choose from, and you answer Emma Stone. I mean,
I know
no
you
offense.
You're gonna
I
have
know
some?
what Pram was like.
Fear of her.
He was like, Emma. He's like, come on, say it.
Emma Watson's hot, too.
Yeah, I love Emma Watson. Emma Watson's probably like in my top 10, but Emma Stone maybe top
I have a thing for redheads. 500.
500.
Sorry.
So do I.
Top
Redheads are
500.
beautiful. Redheads are beautiful. I cannot stress how much I prefer redheads over anybody else, and that's it for these questions. We will get to the viewer questions after this. We
Dustin,
will take a break.
who is your favorite Pokemon player?
My favorite Pokemon player?
Yes.
Off topic, man.
Oh, man. Brad Curcio's up on the list.
Brad Kirchhoff. All right.
Yep.
Handsome devil.
That's the answer. That's the one you're gonna give.
I know you were dying for him to say Kyle.
No, not me.
But
I'm just saying, she's like the actress thing. You got everybody to choose from.
I have everyone to choose from. Who's my favorite player? Well, to be fair, I just needed to give a shout out to Brad in some way. But I don't know. Well, I looked up to Jason Klugzinski a lot when I started playing, like years ago, and then I'm like Drew when he was hot.
Woo!
He's not good anymore.
That is a long time ago. Jeez. I don't
I'm
think I could grow
great.
facial hair back then.
Betrayed.
You, Kyle, you're my number one. I'm your number one fan.
Oh, thank you.
Aw, I don't know what to say. I don't. Who's my favorite player? Everyone sucks.
All right.
Couldn't agree more.
Everyone sucks but you. Okay. Good
Great
answer.
questions.
I thought so.
God.
All right, we'll take a break right now. If you guys have any questions for us, please ask them on our Facebook page. I will link you guys to them right now, and they can be anything. They don't necessarily have to be on topic. I can't stress it enough. If you guys have any questions for any of us, including Doug,
Okay.
Break time.
Well, if you have any
go ahead and
questions,
ask.
including,
and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Thanks a lot, guys.
well, for people who couldn't understand, for anyone, if you have a question for Dustin, send them in, and we'll take a look at it.